So good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us for session 4 of the ShotSmarts 2022 Immunization Conference. First off, I want to thank some of our immunization partners who have been with us for a long time. And next, I'd like to go through some housekeeping items. So this call is being recorded. If you disagree, you may disconnect now. Slides and recordings will be posted on our website after the conference. Please make sure you are muted unless you're asking a question. To ask a question, please raise your hand and Megan will call your name for you to ask your question. When your question is complete, please make sure to remember to put down your hand. You may also submit a question into the chat box and I will read those out at the end of the session. Please also consider keeping your camera off unless you are speaking so we can make sure that the bandwidth keeps the presentation and all of our voices nice and clear. And now I'm going to introduce our guest speaker today, Trevor Manthey. Trevor has spent over 15 years helping people and organizations make behavioral changes. Trevor is skilled at helping agencies develop motivational interviewing skills targeted specifically to their unique patient context. With extensive implementation experience, Trevor has helped many different types of health and human service agencies become proficient in motivational interviewing. In particular, Trevor has helped state agencies in their efforts to implement motivational interviewing system-wide in order to assist in statewide cultural shifts towards more strengths-based strategies. Trevor has provided individualized motivational interviewing coaching and feedback to doctors, nurses, counselors, social workers, supervisors, administrators, frontline, and administrative staff. Trevor has a master's degree from Eastern Washington University and a PhD from the University of Kansas. Trevor was part of an implementation team awarded the National Council on Rehabilitation Education President's Award for his training in motivational interviewing for a trial of effective motivational interviewing training in Wisconsin. Trevor has provided these services both nationally and internationally. Thank you, Trevor, for joining us today.
Perfect. Okay, I will share my slides. Just so you know, I appreciate this opportunity. We're going to jump right into it, though, for process of time, and we will go from there. I am going to do some activities and get some interaction, but I'll elicit it from you along the way. So I'm going to share my screen, and we'll just jump right into things. So I'm sure that we are not alone when we think about vaccine hesitancy and COVID and immunization hesitancy and how that leads to a variety of different issues when we're working with people. And motivational interviewing is an evidence-based practice that helps us talk to people who are ambivalent. And there's a lot of research behind it that shows it's effective. But let's define what it is. So we'll start here. So defining motivational interviewing. Motivational interviewing is this conversational style. It shouldn't feel all like it is an uppity, like formal intervention. It should feel just like it's a conversation that you're having with someone. And however, one of the things that it's about is about helping people talk about their reasons for wanting to make a change rather than your own reason as a professional's reasons why you think they should change. And so it's all about helping people talk about their own internal motivators, values, reasons why they would consider doing a thing. And one of my favorite definitions of motivational interviewing is this idea of arranging conversations so people talk themselves into changing. It's all about helping them talk themselves into it. And it was developed in a slightly different way than a lot of interventions. A lot of interventions are developed by this top-down approach about why people change. And so people in the ivory tower, they'll come up with their grand theory about why people change it, and then they develop a theory based off of that idea, their grand theory, and they'll come up with this idea or an intervention based off of that grand theory, and then they'll test it. MI was developed almost in the opposite direction. It started out in the substance abuse field, and they started, William Miller and others, what they did is they started tracking what seemed to help people talk themselves closer to being sober. And they tracked the techniques and strategies that seemed to help people talk more productively about becoming more sober, and then they compiled those and tested it. So it's almost like it was more of a bottom-up approach instead of a top-down, like what seems to be working with that, and then we'll track that compile it, and then test it, which is very refreshing as far as interventions go. There's a lot of outcome studies that show that it works. I could go through them, but I think I'll just skip it. I'll just let you know that there's a ton of evidence. This is one of the most evidence-based practices out there. However, it isn't the only thing. So motivational interviewing isn't the only thing that you will use when working with people. It's not a panacea. And there's lots of other things that you will do that are effective. However, when ambivalence shows up, MI seems to be one of the most effective things to use. But when there is a lack of ambivalence, or when other things are happening, or assessments or other things going on, you won't be using MI necessarily. But when ambivalence shows up, MI seems to be the right tool for the job at that point. Okay, so let's chat a little bit about ambivalence. People feel two ways about things. That's normal. That is completely normal. We all feel that way, whether it's around our own diet and exercise, around, cleaning up my office desk at work, whether it is around my caffeine intake. I feel two ways about lots of things. Ambivalence about changing is completely normal. And ambivalence around getting immunized, or having your kids immunized, or about getting a COVID vaccine, all of those things are normal. And MI works with that, and in fact helps people tell you more about that instead of just trying to fix it. So I would like to hear from you for a minute. I'm going to stop my share, and I'm going to elicit from you a few things. So let me in the chat function, so everyone get your little, those of you who can type into the chat, I would like you to chat, put in something that you've heard, some things that you've heard from clients recently that let you know that they feel two ways about either being immunized, or about a COVID vaccine, or anything along those lines. Just type in statements that you've heard from clients, because we're going to personalize this today as much as possible. So if you don't mind typing those things in. Oh, I know I should do the vaccine, but I just don't know. Oh, that's perfect. That's exactly the type of thing we're looking for. Thank you, Heather. What are some other ones you've heard recently? I already had COVID, so why should I get the vaccine? Patients, they understand the need and will do the vaccines, but don't agree with them. Ah, nice. I'll do it because it doesn't stop the illness. Why should I bother? I don't feel, let me do some more research. Oh yeah, now they're coming. I'm getting lots of them. I don't have time to even read them all. Okay, this is perfect. So so let's see. My child doesn't need HPV right now because they are not sexually active right now. That's a great one. Let's see. It doesn't feel like the vaccine. Some people don't even know what it is. Okay, these are great statements, everybody. We are going to run with these here in just a minute. Okay. Oh, I feel like I should get vaccinated, but I'm scared to because it was pushed through so quickly. What a great statement. Okay, these things are normal. Do these statements sound familiar to you? Hopefully they do. This is a good indication that vaccine hesitancy is present, that ambivalence is present, and that some MI strategies might be helpful. And it's, by the way, this is so normal. A lot of you probably have heard yourself say similar things about other topics, whether that is like, I love my chocolate chip ice cream. It's delicious. I know it's bad for me, though. I know I should stop eating it. Or like, I know I should exercise more. It's something that I've thought about for a long time. But the idea of running on a treadmill and chafing just sounds horrible, right? So you hear yourself say these things all the time, and your clients will say some things. It's normal. It isn't something to fight against necessarily. It's just an acceptance that that's the way we are as people. Okay, so I'm going to share my screen again, and we'll go back to the PowerPoint, and we'll revisit these. I'll scroll up, and we'll revisit these here in a minute. Okay, so... all right, let me share my screen again. Okay. So we've talked a little bit about what your challenges are. I am going to share this video, and I want to get your gut level reactions after watching it. I want to hear your thoughts after I share this video. What strikes you and just stands out to you after watching the video? Because okay.
It's just, there's all this pressure.
Can everyone hear it?
And sometimes it feels like it's right up on me. And I can just feel it, like literally feel it in my head. And it's relentless. And I don't know if it's going to stop. I mean, that's the thing that scares me the most, is that I don't know if it's ever going to stop.
Yeah. Well, you do have a nail in your head.
It is not about the nail.
Are you sure? Because, I mean, I'll bet if we got that out of there.
Stop trying to fix it.
No, I'm not trying to fix it. I'm just pointing out that maybe the nail is causing.
You always do this. You always try to fix things when what I really need is for you to just listen.
See, I don't think that is what you need. I think what you need is to get the nail
See,
out.
you're not even listening now.
Okay, fine. I will listen. Fine.
It's just, sometimes it's like there's this achy, I don't know what it is. And I'm not sleeping very well at all. And all my sweaters are snagged. I mean, all of them.
Yeah, that sounds really hard.
It is. Thank you. Ow!
Oh, come on. If you would just.
Don't.
Try to see things my way. Do I have to keep on talking till I can go on?
All right. So I would like to hear some of your reactions to that. So you can unmute and chat and shout it out, or you can type it into the chat. It's up to you, but I would like to hear your gut level reactions to that video. What strikes you about it? Yeah, so funny, but so real. Yeah, when you ask people why they don't want to vaccinate, it really isn't the reason that they state. Oh, that's such a good state. I like that. Yeah. If they're married, they won't be for much longer. I am that guy. It's so hard not to fix the problem. I am the fixer. Yes, sounds like my marriage. Just take the darn thing out. Oh, I love that statement. Listening would be the first thing that's done. Oh, I love that statement, Kim, because you're pointing out something about timing. So thank you, everyone, for your comments. You are absolutely right. Well, actually, here's the thing. It's a catch-22, right? Let's be real for a second. Do people have nails in their heads that need to be fixed? Absolutely, they do. And like Kim's comment, but do they need to be listened to first? Absolutely. Some people, so motivational interviewing provides us a way to get out of that catch-22. Because if I'm just trying to fix it externally, then people tend to get more defensive and they tend to talk themselves away from changing. And that's important from an MI perspective. So from an MI perspective, what we call this is the righting reflex. It's this desire to just fix it. Someone comes to us and they have a nail in their head, and they're like, I need you, and they might even be asking you for help with this thing, and then you start to try and fix it, and then they start batting out all of your ideas and even defending the nail. It's not about the vaccine. It's not about the nail. It's not about what it is. And instead, what they're really looking for is some empathy and something else. So timing matters. So I'm going to share my screen again here, and we'll talk a little bit more about this. So We call this the righting reflex. And one of the reasons why this approach, why we try to avoid this righting reflex, is because it causes the person to talk themselves into not changing. And you can almost see it like clockwork. How many times have you given someone a reason why they should vaccinate? And they say, well, I don't like that idea. Or that's not something that I agree with. But my cousin said it influenced her hormones, right? They start talking the opposite direction. And the reason why that matters is because people are often more persuaded by what they hear themselves say than by what other people tell them. So if I'm usually, when I get into fix-it mode, when I get into that righting reflex, what I'm usually trying to do, it's coming from a good place. I am wanting to help, actually. But ironically, it's such a great one. Stephen, he just typed in, it doesn't align with my politics. That's what they might say afterwards, right? Even if you're giving them all the best reasons why they should do it, to get immunized in some way. Okay, so instead, they're hearing all the reasons why they shouldn't do it, and they're talking themselves in the opposite direction. So instead, we're going to sit on our hands from an MI perspective, and we're going to be like, I'm not just going to give them advice or try to fix it or give them solutions or ideas about what they should do. Instead, I'm going to get really interested in what their thoughts are, and then I'm going to try and steer the conversation strategically. And we'll get into some of this stuff. So we have to understand something about change, though. Change is normal, and people and ambivalence is normal. And people will usually articulate both sides, right? I think it's important to get the vaccine. We call that change talk. It's a reason why they may want to do it. They're not saying they will do it, but it's saying that they might do it, right? And I just don't believe in vaccines. That's the staying the same side. We call that sustained talk. That is two sides of our ambivalence. A corollary for something easier to think about sometimes is exercise again, right? Reasons why I want to do it. I want to become more healthy and have more energy. Reasons why I don't want to do it. Well, this is the sustained side. You know, it's hard and I don't have time. So that's both sides of someone's ambivalence. So what we want to do is work with that ambivalence instead of confront it or fix it. We're not trying to fix the ambivalence. We're going to work with it. So let's talk about how there's different types of ways that ambivalence shows up with vaccine hesitancy. Sometimes you don't have to do MI, they're already ready. So they already accept all vaccines, they always get their flu shot, they're ready to go. You don't even have to worry about it. Here in the middle, you have different variations how it shows up. They accept it, but they're unsure about it. Or they accept some of it, but they have their doubts, right? Or I'm not sure that it's right for me, but I'm not sure that I shouldn't not get it either, right? You know, you can almost feel that side. Or then there's the one that's all the way on the other side and they just don't trust vaccines at all. And they're not really ambivalent about it. They're already made up their mind. So where MI works most helpfully for most of the people that you're going to see on a day-to-day basis are people in this middle section. It can help with the ones that are on the refusing side too, but it's going to help most and have a quicker effect for those who are in the middle and you're getting both sides. And we'll get into that. So here's a little map about what we're going to be doing here. Has the person expressed vaccination hesitancy? If they have, in other words, they're giving you both sides, you know, they're hesitant, but they're not saying no, then you can have an MI conversation. And if that resolves it, arrange to have them vaccinated or immunized, right? Depending on what the topic is. If they're still hesitant, support their autonomy but keep the door open. We can't force people. People aren't robots, right? We can't force people to do things, but we can influence, and MI helps with that influence. We're going to increase the likelihood that they'll want to seek it out through doing some MI. Okay, so let's talk about the big pieces of MI. There's the spirit of MI, the micro skills of MI. There's 4 processes to motivational interviewing, and we're also paying attention to how they're talking to us. And how they're talking to us matters because that lets us know which ones of the 4 processes we're going to do. So the spirit of MI is all about how our conversation should feel. It should feel a certain way. The micro skills of motivational interviewing are skills that we develop to help guide and steer and structure a conversation to accomplish certain things. The four processes are our big picture strategies about how we might use those micro skills to accomplish those certain things. And so I'll show you this slide that shows how this all starts to fit together. The MI spirit we see on the left-hand side here: partnership, acceptance, compassion, and evocation. That's how our conversation should feel. That's a feeling. You want them to feel that coming from you as the helper. We're not going to spend a lot of time on that today. On a longer training, we might. We're going to dive into a little bit to some of these micro skills in the middle about how you might start to structure your conversation so people can start talking themselves into change. And we'll talk about some of those things. And in particular, you'll use these micro skills, open-ended questions, affirmations, reflections, and summary statements differently if you're trying to build trust and rapport with someone versus if you're trying to focus them in on your topic, versus if they're ambivalent or hesitant about something and you want to help them start talking themselves into changing, or if you're getting some commitment. So and we're going to spend the majority of our time here and here today. And if you want deeper level stuff, feel free to contact me and we can do some additional things with this. Okay, so the spirit of MI, this is all about how our conversation should feel. We want it to feel like it's an equal relationship. They're feeling accepted, warts and all. Even if we disagree with them, we still want them to feel acceptance from us, warts and all, that we accept them for who they are. And we have compassion. We have their best interests at heart, and we're trying to help them tell us more than we're telling them. So let's jump into some of these micro skills. Strategic open-ended questions, affirmations, reflective statements, and summary statements. These things matter when starting to steer a conversation so that people talk themselves into changing instead of you just telling them what to do. So let's talk about open versus closed questions. You want to have more open-ended questions so that they are telling you things instead of you just telling them. And they go beyond just simple yes or no. So instead of like giving examples on the closed-ended question side, let's just read some of the more open-ended ones here. Tell me, what do you think the benefits of getting the vaccine might be for you? That's open. They could talk about a lot of different things there. It sounds like you have a strong belief about the vaccine. How do you feel about talking to me more about your point of view? I'm really interested in understanding your perspective. What do you think about getting the vaccine? How have you responded to vaccines in the past? Tell me your thoughts about getting the vaccine. What concerns you most about having the vaccine? Notice how these things are very open. They can take it a variety of different ways. We want open-ended questions from an MI perspective, because if the whole point of what we're doing is to help someone talk themselves into changing, that's really hard to do if they're not talking. And they're not going to talk very much if the only thing we ask are things like on this closed-ended side. Can you think of any reason for getting a vaccine? Well, that's a yes or no question. Do you want to talk more about it? Yes or no, right? It's going to start to shut down. Okay, so in particular, open-ended questions that help people talk about both sides of their ambivalence or their hesitancy matters. So if you get really good at these types of questions, this is a great way to launch into an MI dialogue with somebody, a motivational interviewing dialogue, because it allows for both sides instead of denying that one side exists. If I'm just telling someone what I think they ought to do, I'm only allowing for one side of their ambivalence to show up, and usually it's the side for not doing it. Right? So from an MI perspective, what I want to do is ask questions that allow them to tell me both sides. So some examples here are, I'm picking up that you feel two ways about getting immunized. Do you mind telling me about both sides? What are your thoughts? Or, so part of you wants to do it and part of you doesn't. Let's talk about both. Let's start with what you're worried about. And then in a minute or two, you go back to it and go, so what do you think some of the good things might be? Or you probably feel two ways about this. Tell me about your internal struggle. You're just getting really good at open-ended questions that allow for them to tell you in a genuine way both sides. After they start telling you, then you want to start tipping the conversation so they're telling you more about why they would want to get the vaccine as opposed to why they wouldn't. And the more that someone talks about why they want to do something as opposed to why they don't want to do something, just with balance of time, it increases the likelihood that that's the direction that they will choose. It doesn't guarantee it, but it really increases the likelihood. So you're willing to have this vaccine. So let's look at affirmations now. You're periodically going to want to affirm different things and core values and things that are important to them. This really helps with the tone and tenor of a conversation. It's great that you're thinking about getting vaccinated. Your health is clearly important to you. You really want to protect those you love. All of those things are important. I'm going to keep moving though, and we're going to jump right into reflective listening here. So there's different types of things that you might do. Reflective listening is a huge part of motivational interviewing. It is a way to help people feel like you're getting them and understanding them for who they are and their dilemma. And you want to reflect back to them certain things. You want to reflect back to them their reasons for wanting to change, and you're also wanting to help empathize with their concerns, but not fixing them. Because if you try to fix their concerns or convince them that their concerns, that they should drop those concerns and still do something, they're going to fight against you. So instead, reflective listening and reflective statements help someone feel like you get it, like you understand it, but you can also steer and help them talk more in some specific directions. So we're going to get into this. So there's multiple types of reflective statements that you can use that can be helpful in these scenarios. So simple reflections are basically what someone just said, but using different words and not adding a whole lot of meaning. Complex reflections is when you make a reflective statement back to someone and you're inferring some things. You're taking educated guesses. You don't have to go too deep, right? You don't want to go too far, but you're making some educated inferences about what someone might be meaning or thinking based on the concerns that they've shared with you. So let's do some examples. So simple reflection might be things like basically what they just said, right? So let's say that the patient says something like, I know vaccinating will help me, but I'm afraid. A simple reflection might be, I heard you say that you're afraid, right? It's basically what they just said. But a complex reflection captures some deeper meaning or hesitancy. On the one hand, you're nervous because you're uncertain still about some of the aspects of the vaccine. And on the other hand, you understand that the vaccine might be good for you. It goes deeper. Here's some more examples. I'm not sure about this vaccine, if it's the right thing for me, or if it's even safe. And a simple reflection might be, you doubt its safety. A more complex reflection might be, if you knew it were safe, you'd be more willing. You're inferring here. And they'll steer you if you're off a little bit, and that's fine. They're still leaning into the conversation and recognizing that you're trying to get them. Okay, last time I had a vaccine, I got really sick. Last time you got really sick, that's a simple reflection. A deeper level of reflection might be, you want to make sure that that won't happen again if you do take the vaccine. Or, I know it's important, but I'm afraid to have it. It's scary to you. As scary as it is, you see the vaccine as important. So these are examples of deepening the reflections. Okay, so now we're going to do I'm going to add another level to this. We've got simple reflecting. We've got complex reflecting. I'm going to add this idea of double-sided reflections. So I'm going to go back to the statements that you just talked about, I'm going to stop my share and I'm going to read them out. We are going to then process them all together for a minute or two. Okay, so let's do one let's do this one. This one is from Nicole. What if someone says something like, I am fully vaccinated for all VPD, but COVID vaccine is too new? Okay, so they say something like that. There's two sides to a statement like that. And I'm going to choose to reflect it back two different ways. I'm just doing this on the fly. And I want you to notice how it comes across differently and what the person is likely to hear themselves say afterwards. So if you say something like this, you're okay with getting vaccinated when there's evidence behind it, and yet you're worried that this COVID vaccine is pretty new. What are they going to tell you more about? They're going to tell you more about how they're worried about this new vaccine. If the only thing you do is reverse the order of how you reflect it back to them, they're more likely to talk more positively about vaccines in general. So watch how this sounds. So even though you're worried about how new the COVID vaccine is, and that kind of bothers you a little bit, on the other hand, you believe in vaccines when there's enough evidence and you feel like they can be helpful. What are they more likely to talk about now? All the reasons why vaccines can be helpful. And what people hear themselves say matters. Help them keep talking about it for a while. Right? Help them hear themselves say more of the reasons why they want to change rather than they wouldn't. So was that Nicole? Feel free to ask your question. You raise your hand. Go ahead. Or Nicole?
Oh, I think that was just a applause reaction.
Oh, okay, good. I like that. I'll run with the applause reactions. All right. So I'll do a couple more of these so you can get a taste of it. Let's say that someone says something like, let's pick another statement at random. You know, I know I'm going to pick a version of what Sarah put in. She said, is it for politics or for health? Let's just say it's both. So maybe you hear something like this. I really think immunizing is good for people's health, but my politics make me want to disagree with it. Okay? So let's say someone says something like that. If we were to try a double-sided reflection, you would start on one side and end on the other using different words. So it could sound something along the lines of this. Part of you feels like, you know, vaccination is important for people in just their general health. Like, that's just important. At the same time, this political side of you is just having a hard time with it. But what if I reverse the order? It's simultaneously empathic and directive, and that's strategic, and that you're increasing the likelihood that they'll talk more productively about changing. So part of you has a hard time with this because of your political beliefs, and it's hard for you to let that go. And at the same time, there's a part of you that's like, this is good for your health and people's health in general. Now they're more likely to talk about why it's important for the health. You don't have to fix political beliefs or other ideas around this. If you do, they're going to start talking about why they shouldn't do that. You're going to entrench them. Instead, you empathize with them for a minute, help them feel heard, and then reflect or ask a question or do a double-sided reflection so that they're talking more about the side that is for change, and just keep them talking on that side as long as you freaking can. That's the idea. Okay, now I want to put you on point for one, and I want you to practice this by typing it into the chat, and then I'll move into the next section. So I want you to practice. There's all sorts of things. By the way, what we're doing today is just a taste of MI. I'm giving you a taste of the things that we practice in MI trainings. To get good at it, it takes time to practice and do it, and we do lots of activities to help people get really good at this stuff. This is just a taste, and we'll do some practice together over the phone. It'll give you a good idea, or over this Zoom meeting, it'll give you an idea. But don't worry, that I know that there's a lot of moving parts to this. So we're practicing some strategic things And then if you're interested in more, we can do more. Okay, so let's pick a statement. And what I want you to do is just practice doing some double-sided reflections and type them in to the chat function. Okay, so let's do Heather's, the very first one that was typed in. Okay, I know I should do the vaccine, but I just don't know if I want to. Let's just take that statement. I know I should do the vaccine, but I just don't know if I want to. Practice reflecting what they've just said, but purposefully end it on one side or the other. And just type it into the chat, and then we can dissect it together. And I'll give you a minute to do that. I know I should take the vaccine, but I just don't know if I want to. Okay. So you feel that you don't want to do the vaccine, even though you know that you should. Notice how she's ending it on that side. It sounds like there are some things you are concerned about the vaccine, but that you believe the vaccine may be important for your health. Oh, such a good job. So you're not sure if you want to, but you know you need to. Nice, Stephen. And by the way, voice tone is going to matter. If I keep my voice tone down at the end, it's going to keep it more like they're going to want to share more. If it goes up at the end on accident, they're going to treat it like a closed-ended question. So I'll do Stephen's again, but pretend that I do this the voice tone at the end. So you're not sure if you want to, but you know you need to, right? All of a sudden it's yes, no. But if you keep your voice tone neutral, people are going to want to share. I understand you're not sure if you really want the vaccine. You're having some conflicting feelings, but you also feel like you think it would be a good thing for your health. These are great reflections. Notice how this starts to steer without putting people on the defensive. You're helping acknowledge that their feelings and concerns are valid, but then you're helping them tell you more strategically about the one side. And that really helps. And some of you typed in questions and things. Questions are great also, but you're going to be purposeful about when and how you use them so that it structures the conversation in a way where you're not forcing or fixing things. You're letting them decide. Okay, so this is awesome. Tell me more about this. That's a great one, Stephen. Tell me more about what's going on. Okay, so I'm going to share my screen again and we'll move forward. I have appreciated there's someone to put in one more before I share my screen again. Let's read it. It sounds like you have some reservations, but it sounds like you also might have some reasons that you might be considering. Ooh, nice. These are great reflections, everybody. These are strategic. By the way, you can also selectively reflect. Maybe you feel like someone needs more empathy before you move this conversation forward. So you just reflect on the side for why they're stuck. So that might sound like you're picking a side. So you have some reservations, or you're really worried about this. Part of you just doesn't want to do this. This is against your political beliefs. You're just being empathic for why they're stuck, but you're not fixing. You're just reflecting that back for a minute. Then you go to the other side. And on the other hand, part of you knows you probably should. And then keep them on that side as long as you can. Right? And so you can selectively reflect to steer. What you reflect back, they'll talk more about. So you could just pick a side and reflect that, and you'll get more of it. William Miller calls this rescuing change talk out of the jaws of ambivalence. And I love that idea and concept. You're rescuing change talk out of the jaws of ambivalence. And the more they hear themselves talk about the change side, the more motivated they will be to do it. It doesn't guarantee it, but it really increases the likelihood. Okay, so let me share my screen again, and we'll keep moving forward here. Okay, so we did our double-sided reflections activity. If we were to continue to do a more in-depth MI training, we would talk about how we might use those micro skills in each one of these 4 processes. We're just dipping our toes into it for now, but we would get better at using those skill sets to engage and build relationships with people. How to help focus the conversation and steer it more, how to evoke one side more than the other. We've started talking a little bit more deeply about that one, how you help them talk more about one side of their ambivalence, and then moving into the next steps. So but let's move forward. One of the things that we really do more of, though, is we listen to the type of language we're hearing from the client. If I'm getting a lot of discord or resistance, or like things that let me know that my relationship with them is being impacted, I'm going to slow down and be more empathic. I'm not going to evoke as much change talk at that point. I'm just going to help them feel heard longer. Sustained talk and change talk, B and C here, what those are is the 2 sides of our ambivalence. I want to, but, right? So the change talk is I want to, the sustained talk is the but. And then D is like they're ready. They've resolved their ambivalence. They're ready to do this. I'm going to quiz you all now. So I want your chat buttons ready. And I want you to type in what you think these upcoming statements are, because this helps when you start thinking about rescuing change talk and using which one of the 4 processes win. Okay, so what if someone says, I'm worried about the side effects? What kind of language is that? Is that discord, sustain, change, or commitment? How do I see the chat on this? Let's see. Oh, yes. It's so a lot of people are saying A, and I am going to coach on this one. So if it's Lori put B, that's more likely what this is. The reason why this is more likely sustain is because it's about their own internal reasons for not doing it. It's not about you. If it's about you, that's discord. If it's only about themselves, that's their own internal ambivalence. So if they say something like, I'm get off my back about this, I've got side effects. Now they've made it about you, that's discord. If they're just like, I'm worried about the side effects, that's going to be sustained talk. Okay, let's do the next one. Let's do, this program sucks. What is that? Nice. It's discord. Yeah, you guys are all nailing this. Okay, let's do the next one. That one was too easy. How about my dad thinks that vaccines are a conspiracy? Yeah, most of you are putting B, and you are right. There's also one of you put C in there, and it's not overt, but you can almost hear it if they had kept talking. My dad thinks that vaccines are a conspiracy, but I don't. If they had said, but I don't, then there would be some change talk in there. Okay, the vaccine is okay for me, but not my kids. Okay, this one's tricky. What is this? Nice. It's both. I love that you guys are putting some of these in. So it's both. It is the vaccine is okay for me, but not for my kids. There is change talk and there's sustained talk in here. The change talk is the vaccine is okay for me. The sustained talk, but not my kids. That's their hesitancy. It's 2 sides. Nice. I'm totally going to get immunized. D, that's commitment. Nice, everybody. All right. I'll get vaccinated if that means I can go to Hawaii. Nice. That's C. Keep them talking about it. By the way, we don't care what their reasons are. We're not going to judge their reasons. We could even disagree with their reasons. They're their reasons. Help them talk about it and help them talk themselves into changing. Nice. Who are you to tell me what to do with my body? Nice. You guys are nailing this. Well, Let's see. What are the risks? I wouldn't mind getting my teenager vaccinated, but not if the risks are high. This one's tricky again. Think it through, because there's more than one in this one. There's more than one type of language in this one. What is this? Ah, nice. It's both. Now I'm getting a lot of the both ones. You are right. So it's primarily sustain and change. What are the risks? I don't want high risks, right? That's the sustain side. The change side is I wouldn't mind getting my teenager vaccinated. That's change talk. I wouldn't mind, right? Let's do a double-sided reflection here. Let's talk about this. Let's apply one of the primary tools we've already talked about, just for the sake of argument. So on the one hand, part of you is worried about the high risks. You don't like that idea, if there is. At the same time, if the risks aren't that bad, you wouldn't mind getting your teenager vaccinated because it might be helpful for them. You're purposely ending it on that side and rescuing change talk out of the jaws of ambivalence. I like that idea. Okay. All right. So I think we've done enough of these. I'm going to skip ahead and we're going to, I know we're going to start to lose people. So I am going to stop my share, and we've hit a lot of the big points already that we're going to cover. Okay. So there are certain things that we haven't covered today, and there's more in-depth things that you can do that can help. And so I realize that we're getting close on time. I am going to challenge you to be able to practice, even if the only thing that you do is practice more empathic reflections and strategic open-ended questions in your interactions. And then start steering. Right? And you're starting to look for their own reasons for change and helping them tell you more about it. That strategy can help a lot. By the way, there's a tennis player. This is an activity that I like to do. So if you have a free moment, there is a tennis player out there that recently decided that they didn't want to get vaccinated, and they sacrificed their opportunity to become a world champion because they didn't want to get vaccinated. There's a great video about how he describes his ambivalence about why he decided to do that. That is a great video to practice on in your head, this idea. You can literally watch the video and track what are his concerns. Where's a window that I could ask a question or form a reflection that could help him talk more about why he may want to get vaccinated as opposed to why he doesn't. And you can brainstorm things and practice with it in your head by yourself and look really funny when your wife walks in and wonders what you're doing. But that it's a great strategy for doing that. So there's other parts to motivational interviewing. There's other things that we can do, but I think we hit the big general idea for how you can start using some of these skills to help people talk themselves into changing and starting to resolve some vaccine hesitancy. So what questions do you have in the couple of minutes that I have left before we close? What thoughts do people have or questions?
So I'm going to jump in here. Thank you so much, Trevor. Please continue to put any of your questions in the chat and we'll try to get to them. One other thing that I was wondering, I personally found that incredibly interesting and exciting. I could listen to it for hours. So if everybody could use their emoji reactions to let us know if you'd be interested in us talking to Trevor and seeing if we can bring him back for you for another session sometime. Seeing some thumbs up.
Yeah, thank you, everyone. Yes, awesome. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I am not seeing any questions right now, but I think it was just a ton of information that we maybe need to let people process a little bit.
And by the way, I have sent my PowerPoint out. And so if you want copies of that, I'll be happy to have them send a PDF version of the handouts to whoever wants them. All right. Do you mind if I finish this by just thanking all of you? I value all of you. I think that what you do for folks and being on the front lines and helping people resolve their ambivalence and make good choices that are beneficial for their health is so important. So thank you for what you do, and you already do fantastic work, and I would love to be a part of your journeys to make it even more effective. So thank you so much. All right, take care, everybody. Bye-bye.